So welcome, everyone. We want to give a big welcome to all of our students, faculty, staff, Raj, and his entourage. I'm Beth Counihan. I'm faculty in the English department, and this is my chair, Margot Edlin. And we've organized this English Reads program. We had 8 faculty teaching 275 students, and everyone reading colorful Palate, writing about it, talking about the book, and now we're so happy here to have Raj in person with us. And we'd particularly like to thank Regina Rochford, who has retired from the English department, but it's thanks to her that we have the funding for this. She set up the English Success Fund. So we're very pleased that Regina was able to do that for everyone. Even after she's retired, she's still contributing to the college.
Good morning. As Dr. Counihan said, I'm Margot Edlin. I'm the chair of the English department. I'm also a professor here, and my class is here with me today. I know nobody likes to sit at the front, but there are seats up front, and some of you would get to sit next to the author's parents. So that's an extra bonus. Come on up. Today we're thrilled to welcome Raj Tawney and his family and friends, especially his mom Loretta and his dad Roop and his brother Ravi, who should be here any minute. They're lost. Not surprised. Okay, that happens a lot here at Queensborough. I hope he's not at Queens College. Tell him exit 24. And we're happy to welcome them to our campus as Raj's literary career is taking off. Recently, Raj's essays have been published in the New York Times and the Smithsonian. His middle school novel, All Mixed Up, comes out the 26th of November, and A Colorful Palate was just awarded the Indie Book Award for Best Culinary Memoir. So I think that deserves a round of applause. I just want to add a quick little note. As you've read in the book, Raj is from Queens originally, and then he moved out to Comac. So shout out to us Suffolk County people, because he's in the same town as me, in a different hamlet. So at this time, I think we turn it over to Beth again.
Yeah, we want to thank everyone for attending, and please welcome Raj Tawney to Queensborough Community College. Yeah, of course. Okay, thank you.
Wow. Can I curse? Holy shit. This is awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you being here. And thank you, Beth. Thank you, Margot. Thank you, all the faculty and Queensborough Community College. I'm so grateful that my book was selected and is being read by all of you wonderful people. It means really the world to me. When I was growing up, I never thought that someone like me would ever be discussed in society. So for me to be here now is really like a dream come true, and something that maybe I could have imagined even earlier in my life. Because when you're growing up as a mixed race person, you're kind of on the outsides of society. You're kind of living in this gray area where you don't necessarily fit in with any particular one group of people. And that's really how I felt my entire life, and still do to a large degree, that, we're told to believe that, you're either this or this kind of categorization and being thrown into boxes and being told who you are and what the world thinks of you. We rely so much on what other people think of us. And for so much of my formative years, I just decided to stop caring so much. But of course, that feeling of insecurity always stays with you, no matter how much you try to rub it off. Oh, and there's my brother. Give my brother Ravi a round of applause. Thank God you found the place. There's seats right here if you guys want to come sit. And his wife, Sarah. Walk awkwardly in front of everybody as you take your seat. Oh, don't promote that. So again, it's just such a big honor to be here. You know, writing has been this really long journey for me. I never even had the confidence to show anybody my writing till I was 30 years old. I was really shy about my ability to write. I never thought I was good. As you guys have probably read already in the book, I tried, along with my brother, tried a musical route and tried to start a band and tried to really make it on my own without thinking that I have to take these traditional routes in order to get there. You know, and I was defiant the entire way and stubborn actually to a large degree because I really truly believed that I could make it somehow in this world and carve my own path without the need to kind of take the traditional route of going to college or going to a larger school. But I am a product of community college, as you may have already read in the book, and I'm really proud of it. And I dropped out a few times when I was in my teens and 20s. And because I was always chasing this dream of, you know, trying to be a musician and thinking that I was gonna, you know, financially figure it out. Of course I didn't, but those failures are what helped make me who I was, because I learned to fall flat on my face, but I also learned how to hustle and promote and market the things that I was really passionate about. And those things have kind of crossed over into becoming a writer. But as I said, I didn't show anybody my work until I was 30 years old. So when I finally did have the courage to show a friend or a family member, they were saying, "Oh, this is really good. You should try to get this published." So I did. I published my first essay in a local newspaper, and the first essay was about my dear friend Irene, who I write about later in the book, and how she really helped me when I was super lost after finally graduating community college. She just recently passed away at 94, but she was really important in my life, and she'd be really proud if I was here today. She was an immigrant, Italian-American immigrant, and she had a beautiful story and a beautiful soul and personality. So when I first got that essay published in 2018, it was just published in Newsday in the local newspaper, and because I grew up reading newspapers that my dad had always left behind, newspapers were everything to me. Those writers, those journalists, they wrote and spoke for the working and middle classes. And a lot of them also weren't college educated. So I saw myself in a lot of these working writers. And following that essay, I got more encouragement. And they said, "Wow, this is a really sweet story. You should keep going." So I did. And as an obsessive creative, I just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. And now I've been published in over 80 publications around the world. And my second book is coming out in a few weeks. But I think it's important to note that I wouldn't be the person I am today without all of the struggle, all of the failure, all the confusion, especially about my identity, growing up with these three very distinctive cultures in my life, Indian, Puerto Rican, and Italian. And of course, as you read in the book, that food was really this olive branch to helping myself and my family members understanding one another's cultures and how they interweave through the dishes that were made in my home. And it's funny, like, you know, I would always come back to food because food is this kind of safe space. It's this gateway into understanding another person's culture. You know, it's like the really low bar because all you have to do is show up and try something. So that's why I love spending time at the Indian buffet, and that's why I always like watching people give it a shot, because the only way we're going to understand each other is if you try to ask questions or try to help other people understand who you are and where you come from. And you know, I don't think I'm an expert in any subject matter. I'm just a really passionate person, and I follow my passions. But life has taught me that it's okay to fall on your face. It's okay to seem like an idiot, to seem like a buffoon. It's okay to be an asshole sometimes, because that teaches you how to interact with people. It shows you that no matter what mistakes you make, you will always get another chance to make a better impression the next day. Nothing is definitive in this life. You are always at the control panel. You are able to make those decisions in your life always. So it was important for me to write about my family because everybody in my family had different paths to how they became who they were. And everyone in my life, including myself, are just flawed individuals, just like you guys are. We are all flawed individuals. But I think there's a lot of beauty in those flaws. You know, there's a lot of beauty in those simple moments in our lives. So, like my grandma, for example, who was never looking for acknowledgement, she was never looking for praise, she was just trying to make the best life she could for herself. I always saw her as this rebel, as this vanguard, you know, someone who married outside of her culture in 1957 to an Italian-American man, and it was like her goal to make the best meatballs in the neighborhood because that was her way of earning respect in his community. And as you read, she grew up extremely poor in the South Bronx, but she became the breadwinner, not only taking care of her entire family, never having gone to college, but she was a breadwinner in her own marriage as well. And she helped raise my brother and me. And I needed people to know that she was an important person, you know, not only to me, but she was an inspiring person. You know, all the kids in my neighborhood loved eating her food. And through that food is where I learned about her and her journey and her struggles. So that's why she's such an important part of my life, and I hope she inspires you as well. You know, just like my mother, who is half Puerto Rican, half Italian, married my father, met him in Queens in the late 70s, early 80s, and he came here from India, arrived in Jackson Heights. They both lived together in Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, built this other life together. You know, now my brother and me are a composite of all these cultures. My mother was also this vanguard, you know, who cooked Indian food and learned it, and nobody asked her to. She was just really passionate about Indian culture even before she met my dad. And then to gain acceptance into Indian culture is really tough because it's a very insulated community. But she used food as a tool to navigate, and she, you know, taught herself through studying the cooks in kitchens in Jackson Heights, through studying the pioneering chef Medor Joffrey's cookbook. She did all that, you know, because she had that passion and interest to learn more and want more for her life. So growing up with all these cultures, you know, was beautiful, but it was also really confusing because I didn't fit in anywhere. And when my parents wanted us to have a little bit of a safer life to move to South to Long Island, my brother and I didn't look like anybody. We looked like outsiders. We were treated like outsiders to a large degree. I was picked on, I was bullied. It didn't mean every kid was a jerk. It just meant that, you know, if the average American kid was getting picked on, well, then I was already 10 steps behind that kid. But what it did was it taught me to be tough. It taught me to move to the beat of my own drum. It taught me to say, hey, screw everyone else. I'm just going to make my own way in life. And so that defiance has always been part of who I am. But at the same time, it's so meaningful to try to bridge gaps of misunderstanding because you want people to come together and understand each other. I mean, that's the whole experiment that is this country. It's a melting pot. You want to figure out ways to bridge these gaps and connect with people because that's how we're going to progress as a society. So if somebody tells you something about yourself and you believe them, don't. You are the only person who must believe in yourself and tell you who you are, because this world is going to always tell you what they think of you, but if you beat them to the chase, no one can stop you. So I really thank you for bringing me here today, and I'd love to talk and hear what you guys have to say. If you've already been reading the book, I'm all ears. I think, Beth, you had some questions from some of them?
Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Okay. And so now we have the microphone so we can pass it around. Here's one. So this is from a student. Who was the most important person that you met who shaped you to who you are now? And not coming from thinking about the book, because the student says if it were, the student would say that it was your brother.
So who is the most important person that they think it was my brother?
Yeah, they think it was your brother.
I think my brother is a really important person in my life because he was the only one that fully understood what I was going through. Although, you know, we've always our opinions have differed sometimes about how we see ourselves. But I think at the end of the day, he's the only person I can call and who would completely understand the feelings that I'm feeling. I think that's a really good question. Yeah, thank you.
Can we ask you some questions about college?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have to be formal here. You guys can just shout it out too. I don't care.
Yeah, definitely feel free. If you have a question, just raise your hand. I can bring you the microphone or just stand up and ask it. So students want to know about your time in college, because you don't write that much about it.
Yeah.
So.
Because I sucked in college.
But, well, why did you lose motivation when you first started? Or back and forth, the motivation?
I think I was always that student that had potential, but just didn't apply himself, for obvious reasons, because way too more interested in trying to be a musician and making a career out of that. It wasn't that I didn't like school. I was just not interested at the time. I just had this blind self-belief that I was going to figure out how to make it in music, and so that was really the problem. It wasn't until I finally called it quits in music in my early 20s that I started to apply myself in college, and once I did, I actually had a much better time. I took journalism classes, I took English classes. I always liked reading. I was a slow reader, but I was never a great reader, but I liked reading, I liked writing. So it's just building that confidence level. I think that's what college ended up doing for me at the end.
Now, especially the journalism class, right? Because now you're, in a way, an essayist, journalist. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about what you remember of the journalism class? Any encouragement there, or anything where you saw yourself like, hey, this would be something? Yeah,
I had this professor, her name was Wendy Ladd, and she was a former local TV anchor. And I think she wasn't doing it anymore, but she was very passionate about journalism. So she just had this enthusiasm, that are always, the best teachers always have that. I love teachers that bring their real world experience into the classroom and really kind of, get you excited about it. And they show you what they've been through in their life. And that really motivated me to say, well, if she could do it, I could do it. So she was really encouraging, and I ended up writing for the school newspaper. I ended up editing the school newspaper, even though I still thought I sucked as a writer. But she encouraged me. She just really gave me the confidence I didn't even know I had yet at that point.
And what about making the move from music to writing? So with music, you were writing lyrics, so that's writing too. Yeah,
so I was always writing in class. Whenever I was not pretending to pay attention in class, I was writing song lyrics and scribbling in my notebooks. And finally, I took this poetry class in high school, and it was able to kind of merge the song lyrics with the poetry, and it was really, a great experience. But I also started performing in school talent shows, and that built my confidence in that way, and people started to give me encouragement. So a lot of it has to do with just showing people the things that I'm doing, and because you're so afraid that someone's going to say you suck or you shouldn't do this or please go away. But they ended up giving me a lot of encouragement. So, but even that encouragement, even if it leads to hard work, it doesn't mean it's going to pay off. So, that's why failure is a really important element.
I want to ask something about the new book, All Mixed Up, because from what I see about it, it seems like maybe it might have come out of your chapter about September 11th in Colorful Palate.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, I'm guessing a lot of you weren't around for 9/11. So, that was a really interesting time in our history. It was a difficult time. It was a difficult time to be anything but white in this country. So I really wanted to write from a perspective that wasn't talked about as much. There's a lot of important perspectives that have been written about during that period, but I thought it was important to see what other families and people, especially in New York, were going through at that time. And so in All Mixed Up, it's fiction, but it's about a boy like me who goes through, in the year after 9/11, and how someone like me, and also how immigrants dealt with that period. And it was a fear-mongering type moment in our history. So to be on one side or the other meant, you were either really patriotic or you were screwed.
Yeah, I think it's important timing now because, I always hear from historians that something doesn't become history until 20 years after it happens. Then there's enough time and space so that historians can really look at it and make sense of it. So, here we are 20 years later, and here's a whole group of young people that don't really know much about what happened on September 11th and the way it affected people. So I think that's really a good time for this book to come out.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
No, it's okay. You sure? Yeah. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I have two questions. The first one is, at what point did you decide to write the book?
At what point did I decide to write the book? Probably after I started publishing a lot of these essays that I was writing. You know, for me, like, the essay writing was a great exercise for me to figure out if I actually wanted to write a book, because I'd gotten really proud of myself that I could pull off an 800 to 1,000 word essay and make it really tight, and then write about subjects that I cared about, and I felt great about that. But the idea of writing an entire book seemed really daunting. It seemed impossible, honestly. But when I started to get a lot of love and attention for the essays I was writing, I felt like, okay, I wanted to keep challenging myself. You know, I always write essays, I still write essays, but I felt like to try to write an entire book was going to be something that felt impossible. But writing an essay once felt impossible. So I feel like you got to set goals for yourself and keep challenging yourself. Like, I'm already working on a third book now, and it's scaring the hell out of me, but I'm up for it because, like, well, I've done it before, you know, and you gotta just keep climbing that mountain over and over again, and they'll take you to heights you never thought possible in this life. What was your second question?
Second question is, what author inspires you?
Sorry?
What author inspires you?
What authors inspire you?
What authors inspire me? I mean, well, so a writer that really inspired me was this writer, Pete Hamill. He was a newspaper journalist who passed away a few years ago. He was, he didn't go to college. He grew up in New York in the 30s and 40s. He wrote about Irish American immigrant experience. He became a really beautiful writer for the New York Post, Daily News. And he published a lot of books, including the memoir called The Drinking Life, which was the biggest inspiration for Colorful Palate, just because the way he wrote in such a simplistic manner and detailed, you know, these very seemingly small experiences in life, but they were beautiful at the same time. So he was the biggest inspiration for me. I also love Junot Diaz, who blurbed the book. That was crazy to get him to blurb it. You know, I love Jimmy Breslin, the sports writer, who's no longer here. He was a great New York writer. I love New York writers. I love New York stories, and I hope that I'm part of the next wave of New York stories. I mean, that's really was always my dream. Yeah, I mean, I like writers who didn't necessarily go to big fancy schools and have master's degrees. I like writers who kind of have lived and had to really suffer. Because I feel like that's where the best writing comes from, you know, is real life experience. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
We got a question here. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Let somebody else, we'll get back to that.
Okay. Yeah.
Since you have such a diverse background, depending on the context, whether it's music, writing, college, do you ever feel like people identify you more as Indian or as Puerto Rican or as Italian? Is there something that you sometimes maybe have used to your advantage, saying, oh, they over-identify with this specific aspect?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I keep thinking of that to this day. And honestly, he was asking if anybody identifies me with Indian, Puerto Rican, Italian, one more than the other. And honestly, when you're mixed, I never felt like I was identified as any of them. I don't know if my brother felt the same way also. Again, like, we're always kind of living in this strange gray area as outsiders in all of these communities. Now, as I've gotten older, I mean, like, I've had a lot of Indian family members or people tell me, you know, we see you as Indian and we really accept you in our community. And that really means a lot because that was something I never really felt as growing up. I had Indian friends, and I had family members were so-so. I think a lot of Indian kids that I did know growing up gravitated toward me and they accepted me as one of their own, but I never felt like a full anything, to be honest with you. I still don't feel like a full anything, but I've come to like it that way because I feel like, being mixed has become this superpower, where I can see all three cultures from this vantage point and realize and kind of have compassion for everybody because everybody is part of this human experience, and whether, even though our very minor differences might get in the way, what we all want to have a nice life, love, good food, a nice place to live, if you can, a good place to sleep, good family if you're able to get that, be born into it, very basic things in your life. We all want the same things. So I really am proud of who I am, whatever this big mush I am as a person. I really am grateful for that. So, but I think I love all three of those cultures more than I did. I think I respect it more, and of course respect the journey of all of those immigrant groups who came to this country and tried to make a better life. I think you got to forgive a lot of those people when you get older because you realize, not everyone's going to make the best decision, but they're all trying to make a good life for themselves. That's really the whole point why we're in this country to begin with. So that was a long way of answering your question.
Sarah wants it. First of all, I want to congratulate you on the publishings, and I want to say I really enjoyed the book, and it's always great to see more Desi representation.
Thank you.
My question, low-key, kind of already got asked, but I was going to ask, did you ever feel more gravitated towards one of your cultures than the other, and if so, why?
Did I ever feel gravitated toward one of my cultures more than the other? Yeah, I think I definitely went through periods where I wanted to feel more Indian. I mean, one of my first girlfriends was Indian American, or my first girlfriend actually was Indian American. There were times where I wanted to identify as more Puerto Rican because it made me feel feel more removed from the suburbia that I was stuck in, and I knew I had friends and family out in Queens who I'd much rather hang out with who were Puerto Rican. Again, it depends on the day, I think. If I'm and also the food also, it was a big deal. If I'm eating, my mom made chicken curry the other night, but it's my Puerto Rican Italian mother making the chicken curry, right? But so in one hand I feel Indian, and the other hand, I feel exactly who I am, which is great, because I've come to that point where I understand who I am. I think there's one recipe in the book I wrote about. It was called Loretta and Elsie's Chana Masala, and it's a great story for me because it was a dish my mom made for my dad's Indian family and community, and it's an Indian dish. So that has a whole story to it. But it's the only dish my Puerto Rican grandmother, the only Indian dish my Puerto Rican grandmother learned to make for us, and it would become a weekly meal. So talk about confusion, but I didn't think much into it. But again, it's I don't feel one more than the other. I feel really proud to be this weird mashup of a person. And I think writing really helped me figure that out. I think writing was cathartic in that way. Again, that's a really long way to answer your question, but I'm still workshopping it in my brain, Yep. My relationship with my father, you said I resented him? Culturally, I resented him? I can't hear him, sorry.
That's how she understood.
That's how you felt? Yeah, I mean, that's perceptive. I think, yeah, there were definitely moments in my youth where I felt very frustrated with my dad because there was this disconnect. Well, he's still laughing because he doesn't get it. There's this cultural disconnect I was going through at that moment where he was more interested in always kind of clinging to his culture, and I was always my brother and I were always kind of left in the middle of it, still trying to figure out who we were. I mean, you read that we didn't learn Hindi, we didn't go to temple, we didn't go to church, we didn't learn Italian, we didn't learn Spanish. So food was always the crux of like how do you figure out who the hell you are if your parents aren't exactly exposing you in the way that maybe two Indian parents would expose you to their culture, right? So there was always this push and pull and this frustration of like, well, is he embarrassed of us because we're not full Indian, or is he struggling with this himself? I think that's that's him to figure that out on his own. For me, I had to figure it out, and I went through probably a lot of angry, rebellious, resentful years trying to figure out what the hell am I doing here, and why, am I Indian? Am I not? Am I feeling a sense of pride being part of this culture? If I'm a kind of like this mutt, for lack of a better word, because that's the word I always used growing up. I don't know. I'm still thinking about that. But I love my father. I think my father is the best, and I've always had a really strong relationship with him, even though we've had ups and downs like everybody's families do. I think what I just come to learn as an adult is you got to love everybody for the beauty and the flaws that we all have, because none of us really have the answer to anything. We're just trying to figure it out along the way. So I think having compassion and forgiveness for other people is really important, and kind of letting go of some of that anger, because life is this constant work in progress, and as much as you want to think that you have it all figured out, you'll never have it figured out. But that's okay. I mean, that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you exploring your own self-identity and others. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Yeah.
What is your favorite book, or what are your favorite books?
My favorite books?
Yeah.
My favorite book? Oh my God, there's so many books. Well, I mean, like when we loved Anthony Bourdain growing up, so like Kitchen Confidential was a big book I loved when I was a teenager, and he's probably another big inspiration for a lot of my food and identity writing, because he opened the world up to a lot of us. Pete Hamill, of course, is A Drinking Life. I'm trying to like literally look at my bookshelf in my mind. There were a lot of great middle grade and children's books I loved. David A. Adler wrote the Kem Jensen series, which was a big deal for me when I was growing up. The Other Side of the Mountain was another great one. And, I mean, I just love the Boxcar Kids series. I mean, I love all kinds of books. I mean, it takes you to other worlds. That's the beauty of books, movies, TV, all that stuff. I mean, it's supposed to remove you from your current life and take you on a journey, maybe a journey that you yourself haven't been on, and maybe you could find a piece of yourself in it. Anybody else?
So I enjoyed all the recipes in your book, and it makes me really proud of my culture, because I'm Bengali, and like I saw the chopped masala in your book, and I want to make it, and I was just wondering, like, what type of food do you prefer? Do you prefer Indian, Puerto Rican, or Italian?
That's a good question. I get that question a lot, actually, and I really appreciate that you like the recipes, and I hope you'll try it and send me a photo, because that's been the most rewarding part, is when people send me photos of the recipes they try, because it means a lot. Again, like if you ask me on a specific day of the week, what do I prefer? It really depends on what I just recently ate. So like if my mom cooked chicken curry the other night, and I was like, yeah, that's the best ever. But if she cooked meatballs, spaghetti, I would say that's the best ever. Or if I had rice and beans, I'd say that's the best ever. Like, I don't like to pick favorites. I think I love food. I love eating food. I love appreciating it. I suck as a cook, but man, I can cut an onion really well. I can peel garlic really well. Like, I'm a great assistant. But like, my wife is a brilliant cook. My mom, my brother is a really great cook too. My dad can make some eggs, I guess, and he's really proud of that. But I don't have a favorite movie. I don't have a favorite book. I don't have a favorite food. I just love so much. I mean, that's what's really cool about being on this earth and being alive, is that there's so much to love and appreciate. We could focus on all the negative crap, but like, there's so much other fun stuff going on in this world. There's so much to learn and explore. And every time you think you've seen and done it all, it's just, there's more and more and more and more. So now I'm hungry, so thank you for asking that question. Anybody else? Yes.
So I didn't have the honor to read your book. However, after hearing your speech, I am interested in reading it. But one question I want to ask you is what one advice that you can give to young folks that are caught by life responsibilities and have a goal they want to achieve?
What advice can I give to folks who have things they want to achieve?
As college students, there's most of us that are deprived from achieving a certain goal. So what advice can you give them in order to keep going, I guess?
To keep going even though you have a bunch of life responsibilities and all that? Right. So you mean when life keeps beating you down and you got to pay these stupid friggin' bills and your friends and your family suck sometimes and you got all this shit piling up in your life and yet you still want to pursue the things that you want to pursue, right? That's your question? Just keep going. Find 3 hours in the middle of the night to do the thing, to work on the thing you want to do when everybody's sleeping. Or take your lunch break, chug a bunch of coffee or caffeine, and do it then. I have 4 dogs and 2 senior citizen parrots who scream and bark all the time, and I can't get my head straight sometimes. So I leave the house sometimes. I go write in Panera Bread or wherever. I go wherever. I take walks. I clear my head. I write when everybody's asleep. I need to be, whenever something inspires me, I just put it down. The phone now is great. I write notes on my phone. Wherever, and I keep a notebook with me. I jot down notes. Whatever is inspiring me, and I have to get it out of my brain, I won't let anything stop me. And yeah, I have to work a job too. Writing isn't my full-time living. But I always make time to figure out a way to get that thing in my soul out of my system. And it doesn't mean it's going to become successful. It doesn't mean it's going to make me money. It doesn't mean it's going to take, doesn't mean it's going to do anything for me. But I know that if it's inside me and it exists and I know I can figure out a way to make something more out of it, then I'm going to do it. You got to do it. You can't just not do it. You're going to hate your life if you don't do it. You have to do it. You're welcome. Anybody else? Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, the publisher has been, that's a whole other journey about talking about getting the book published. But by the time I did get this book deal and get it published, the publisher was really supportive. The only thing they asked me was all the recipes in the book didn't have exact measurements. It was all written verbatim from my mom and my grandma. And they said, do you want us to add exact measurements? And I was like, no, don't add any exact measurements. It's supposed to sound like spoken word poetry in that way, like a dash here, a sprinkle here, da-da-da. It's passed down almost like folklore. So it was important to me to have those recipes exactly how it was told to me, with no definitive measurements. So that was the thing I really held out for. And they were true to that. Now, if you want to talk about the entire rest of the experience getting the book published, that's a whole other crazy-ass journey, but, I could tell you about that on the side if you want.
You have another question, Sarah?
Yeah.
Did you ever face writer's block, and how do you work through it?
I couldn't hear her question.
She asked if you ever faced writer's block and how you work through it.
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, yeah. Writer's block is real, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are going through it too, because unless you're really inspired or really in a good rhythm of getting it out of your brain, it sucks. You're stuck. I've experienced it many times. The best way for me to combat writer's block is to get up, take a walk, put on some music, go do something entirely different, go, eat something, watch TV, just clear your brain and but also while you're doing that, try to find a way, try to think about the thing you're trying to write. Just let it just marinate a little bit, and hopefully it'll come to you. Also, this is maybe not the best advice, but chug a lot of coffee, get yourself caffeinated, super caffeinated. I drink way too much coffee, so that really helps. But yeah, in other words, give yourself a break. Don't stare at your computer screen or your notepad and say, I gotta get this, I gotta do this. Just take a break. Take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break, 20-minute break, a day if you have it, 2 days if you have it. Sometimes I don't go back to a thing for a week or two because I'm just not ready to write the thing that I really feel I could write well. So you got to give yourself time, but think about it while you're giving yourself time. Does that help? Good. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Can you tell us about, so you don't have a regular writing routine as a writer? Or do you?
No.
So,
I'm in a...
how do you keep yourself disciplined? Right. We know coffee does help a lot.
I think because I'm such an obsessive creative that when I have an idea in my head, I have to sit and complete it. And I do take breaks, of course, but if the idea is already in my head, I got to get it out of my head. So I kind of write in these really quick or long sprints where if I'm inspired to write, I'll tell my wife, like, I gotta close the door for 2 hours, and I just have to do this. And I'll just go. Or, I'll write a draft of something and it probably sucks, but then I'll get up and I won't look at it for about 24 hours or at least half a day, and I'll come back and then revisit it. And mostly it ends up being better than the first draft. And I'm a big advocate of never submit your first draft, because it always gets better after you revisit and sit with it and change your words around and change the direction sometimes of where you're trying to lead. But I think writing routines are really great. I know a lot of writers who have great routines. They wake up at 6 in the morning and they write till 9, or at the end of the day they'll finish dinner and sit down and write, and I think that's really great. I just can't function that way because everything is so chaotic in my brain. It's like the wires behind your TV. It's just craziness. So I just have to do it when I have to do it.
And you're always working on more than one thing at a time, so you have this new book, which maybe you can tell us a little bit about, or no?
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you about it. It's about a book it's about a kid like me. It's middle grade for young middle school readers. It takes place in 2002, a year after 9/11. He befriends a Pakistani immigrant. So I talk a lot about the patriotic fervor and Islamophobia going on at the time, especially in New York. But it's also an adventure story. It talks about identity, it talks about food, it talks about bullying. A lot of themes that I really like to write about because it helps me, understand myself as I write. It's cathartic to write about the subject matters that scare and concern you the most, because it gives you the bravery to kind of overcome and conquer those things that are eating you up inside. So I'm excited about the book. I've been going to middle schools and talking to kids about it. I've been going to libraries, and I get to talk to, kids, 9 and 11-year-olds, who see the world much differently than I do, and are really, there's a lot of great people out there in this world, young and old, and that's what writing has afforded me to do. It's allowed me to meet people who I never would have met otherwise, because all these passions bring you together, just like anything, music, art, whatever you're into, movies. It takes you out of your world, and it connects you with people that you didn't know were out there. And I think the more we do that with each other, the more we realize that we're all very much alike, and that these differences are really made up in total BS. Any other questions?
Yes, another, okay.
Yeah.
This isn't really a question, more of a recommendation. There's this other book that I've read before. It's called Cheese Dosa by Aditya Surendran.
Cheese Dosa? It's a great title.
Yeah, and it's about this Indian dude who also didn't feel like he fit in, and he also gives recipes from his family, and I think it's a great read.
Thank you. I'm going to check it out. Thank you for that recommendation.
Since we're on recommendations, you say you don't have favorites, but just some restaurants?
Yeah, in Queens, for sure. Dara restaurant in Jackson Heights is a great place. They got great samosa chaat, and that we love. Kebab King, right, Dad? Yeah. Hunan of Grand Sichuan in Flushing is one of my favorite places. I wrote about, in the book when I talk about meeting my wife, she took me to Shabu Shabu in Flushing on our first date, and I made a total ass of myself. That remains one of our favorite places to go. We used to go to Minnie's, but that's long gone now. Fukuoka is the one that we really love to go to in Flushing. Great, dim sum, of course, there's so many great dim sum spots. I mean, if you guys have any suggestions, I will always take your suggestions to heart. Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong anywhere around here to eat. And diners, I'm sentimental about diners, so I love diners. I love a lot of family-run businesses. I think those are always the best. I don't who cares about fast food? It's so boring after a while.
Another foodie kind of question.
Yeah.
You live in Florida.
Yeah.
So do you miss New York food?
Oh, tremendously. I feel like I'm on an eating tour since I've been here.
What do you eat in Florida? What's good to eat?
Well, the funny thing is that where we are in South Florida near Miami and Fort Lauderdale, it's actually really culturally diverse. There's an enormous Latin American population. You have Colombians, Venezuelans, Argentinians, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Brazilians. And then you also have a huge South Asian community down there. There's like 2 Hindu temples right down my street. You have Vietnamese food, Taiwanese food, Lebanese, Moroccan, Ethiopian. I mean, there is no shortage of food diversity going on down there. It feels very much like New York in a lot of ways. So I'm spoiled food-wise just like I am up here. So I don't miss much except for when I come here, like there's just certain stuff I miss, like kati rolls or coleslaw at a diner, good slice of pizza maybe, bagel, lox. I mean, those stuff like that I miss. Babka. What?
Weather.
The weather's beautiful down there. It's hot as shit most of the time, but so I'm freezing my ass off right now. But I do miss the fall up here, and the springtime is gorgeous. I miss walking around the city. Yeah, I mean, there's always things to miss. I'm a New Yorker no matter what. No matter where I live, I'm a New Yorker. So I always have that edge to me. Everybody's too damn friendly everywhere else. So no, I love New York. It's my home always. So. But I think there's a lot of other great places to live in the world and people to meet. I love Florida too. So I always encourage everyone to go travel and see things. That's the best thing you could do for yourself. I used to think I was going to be a diehard New Yorker my entire life and I'd never live anywhere else, but I've come to like living in another place. But I also love coming home to visit my dad and my mom and my brother and everybody who is still here. So. Yeah, again, there's no definitive way to be or live. It's just go out and try things out, explore things, fail. Yeah, that's the best part about living.
Is failing.
Yeah, falling completely on your face. Yeah.
Whatever happened to the Barney jacket?
Yeah, I'm still looking for that Barney jacket. I love that thing. I still dream about it. Yeah, and I'm still obsessed with jackets, by the way. That's why I wrote about it, because I think clothing is such an important. If you read in the book that clothing is such an important theme, because I love clothing. I love thrift stores. I love just kind of. It's all part of your identity and how you make yourself up, and that changes all the time from year to year, month to month, and it's. If there was an adult-sized Barney jacket with those bedazzled, I would totally wear it as an adult. Because why not? That's awesome. Yes.
In the first chapter, you mentioned that your dad kind of got the vibe of Shami Kapoor. I was wondering, did you ever watch Bollywood movies? Do you watch them?
Bollywood movies? We watched him a lot when he used to get all those bootleg VHS and DVDs, from Queens. And they were okay. I don't really watch many Bollywood movies as an adult. I don't have the patience for them. It's just, they're too dramatic. They're like 10,000 hours. They're always, these torrid love affairs, and then guys threatening to beat each other up, and then they go into a dance sequence, and they all have ripped abs. And the men and women are all ultra sexy, and I have no idea why. This is like complete ridiculousness. So, no, I don't watch Bollywood movies. But I love a lot of the old stuff. Like my dad showed me a lot. His favorite movie was called An Evening in Paris that came out in 1967. Who was it, Shashi Kapoor who was in that? Shami Kapoor, sorry. And I just like film history in the United States or anywhere in the world. I love old movies, so. Do you have a favorite? Okay. Do you want Om Shanti Om? We know that one. Respect. Any other questions?
I think we want to have.
Oh, yeah.
One last question, and then we'll end. And So students who have their books with them, who would like Raj to sign your book and come up. So
Yeah.
the last question, please.
Yeah, I'd love to meet you guys if you guys have your books on you. Or if you threw them out already, I completely understand. Yeah, what's your... Right. No, I don't do anything musically. I just appreciate it. I mean, music is big in my life, like it's probably big in your life, in that I listen to it every day. It motivates me, inspires me. I play music when I wake up in the morning. I play music when I'm washing the dishes. I play music when I'm going for a walk or when I'm running or whatever I'm doing. I love it. I love appreciating it. Old music and new music. I go see a lot of concerts, but I don't touch it anymore because it's just the way I operate. You know, I committed myself to writing. I gave music up a very long time ago at this point, but I can look, rather than be embarrassed, I can look back fondly on those years a little bit more. You know, and that's okay. It's the closing of one chapter, opening a new chapter. So I think as long as I'm creative, that's really what matters to me, you know, is that it's the same person what I was 20 years ago. It's feeding the same need. You know, if you're a creative person, it's never going to leave you. And if you don't fulfill your own creativity, you're going to be miserable. So that's why I'm encouraging you to always be creative if that's who you are. You know, and it doesn't mean you have to be successful at it. You just have to do it, because that's who you are. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cool.